Sure. It's a list, Emma.
I didn't know whether to dance down there or just walk casually.
I think we're going to come soon. Emma, will you introduce yourself? Emma, did you do that now, before or after?
I'm happy to do that now. Good afternoon. Lovely to be here. My name is Emma Jones. I run a business called Enterprise Nation. We help people start and grow their own small business. And I'm also a co-founder in a campaign called Startup Britain.
Thank you very much. And our next panelist is Duncan Cheatle. Duncan. The tempo.
He is at least running.
It's good. You get into the tempo. Duncan.
Loving the music.
Floor is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Duncan Cheatle. I wear a few hats. I'm also co-founder of Startup Britain. I also sit on the advisory board of a government-funded scheme to provide mentor-supported loans to young people called the Startup Loan Company. But I think I'm probably here more because I run a club for high-growth entrepreneurs and have had the good fortune to chair over 500 roundtable discussions with those entrepreneurs over the last 10 years.
Thank you very much.
I do have right to things.
And the last not least, Nic Rixon. Here you go.
That should have been James Bond as well.
I always wonder what they did with my football. Hi, so as it says, my name's Nic Rixon. It does get confused, but anything with a Nick or a click in it usually works. I am a serial entrepreneur, which just means I'm a slow learner. I'm head of our coaching division, global coaching division, which works with mid-tier businesses, including law firms. And I'm also a partner in a business called Navitas IP, which basically helps develop businesses for exit and improves and increases their multiple so that we can all retire and be happy. What I'm worth.
Thank you very much. I mean, I talked to the people before. I mean, I promise you, amazing human being. I was saying, I tried to say that I kept it quiet, even though I spoke. I think amazing story, amazing thing you're going to hear today, I hope. And you're going to understand the passion of entrepreneurship. Because behind this panel, as I told you before, is to wrap up the dare, dream, do, deliver, to show what is successful entrepreneur. I told part of you in the break you are not successful at all, even though you're making so much money. I don't think you are. And you're going to hear it later on. So we'll start up with, I think, with the first subject, if you're diving right away in. And it's actually, what is entrepreneurship? Or what is the hip about entrepreneurship? Talking about it, doing, showing people what is actually you have in your hand that you are dealing, even as a lawyer professional. So in order to start, I'll show you a small movie, and then we go to the panelists if you can react in it. Can you see it somewhere?
Yeah, we can see it down here.
Oh, great. So the first question for you, Emma, what is entrepreneurship for you?
Well, I'm just wondering if that is going forward for a BAFTA nomination, that video. Actually, but this is the thing. There were so many words in that video that I guess I would pick up around entrepreneurship, but not to be contentious from the start. I do want to pick up on something that Nic just said, which I want to slightly contest with as to what I think entrepreneurship is about, which is that Nic said what we all want to do is retire and be happy. And I will contest that because I don't think I've ever met anyone who has retired and is happy. Because one of the things that I think is about entrepreneurship, and the word was used in there, is having a vision and having a purpose. And you'll have seen that sadly Sir David Frost recently died, and I don't know if anyone went back to watch the Nixon interviews, which are not about entrepreneurship, but one of the things that Nixon said in those interviews when Sir David Frost said, when you left office, you know, people were saying that you were going to commit suicide, and Nixon said, you know, life without purpose is not a life that's worth living. So for me, entrepreneurship is about having a vision, having a purpose, giving it that time. There was a word, it said, make this your finest hour in that video, which again made me smile because I thought entrepreneurship isn't just about 1 hour. Entrepreneurship is about giving it your all for quite a sustained amount of time. So having a vision, having a purpose, putting in that hard work to make sure that that kind of vision becomes reality. And I guess the other thing that I think entrepreneurship is about constant innovation. So kind of not sitting back and thinking, right, we've got this product perfect, but actually continuing to innovate to make sure you're delivering the right product to the right market. So I hate to start with a contestant, or at least contention with another sort of panelist, but that's what entrepreneurship is to me.
Thank you very much. By the way, I think we can accept a question during the panel, right? Any of you rejecting it, we can get questions as well, right? Anybody have any question during any of the remarks given, just raise your hand, please, okay? Duncan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I kind of, when I saw what the question was going to be, I thought, well, I'll look and see what my definition is, and I guess it's, say what it is briefly, it's spotting an opportunity, validating it, and then getting on with it. And I guess one of the things that I think most entrepreneurs find frustrating is hearing other people say, I had that idea, as though they've suddenly laid claim to almost the same success that somebody who's gone and executed on it has. And I guess, I think some of the things that were up on the screen, the vision, the passion, the purpose, they're all enormously important. I think resilience is a word I would put in there as well. It always takes, you probably heard, twice as long and costs twice as much than you expect when you start out, and the business you end up with is invariably different to the one you think it will be on day one, but that's great. I think on a positive note, the thing that I found, because I started life as an accountant and finance director before I kind of set up my own business, the thing I've really found is it's like joining a new group of people. So I have lots of friends who do all sorts of jobs. They enjoy them to varying degrees, but I haven't met many entrepreneurs that don't love what they do. And when you get around those people, just the energy, I am a different person as a result of changing and shifting and setting up and running my own business, undoubtedly. So for me, I'd throw resilience in, but energy that comes off of it.
Thank you. I just want to remind you that you Google after the people, you found that Duncan was accountant, actually. So oh, really, as well?
I
you
was
see,
Arthur
guys,
girl.
so there's a lot of hope
Best
to
kind
go.
of accounting.
Nic.
Well, fortunately, I get to be contentious for a living because as a business coach, I get to challenge all sorts of thinking. I like what Job said earlier on, for those of you that were in the auditorium earlier, and he said, if you're not passionate about what you do, then half the time, you know, people would think you're completely crazy. I remember sitting there years ago looking at what I was doing and how hard I was working, and you couldn't have got anybody else to do what I was doing for what I was earning. So this morning I just Googled, just to double check that it wasn't different to yesterday, the word entrepreneur, and you'll be pleased to know that there are 101 million websites that talk about entrepreneurship with an average 10 links per page, 10 pages per page. That's how much information there is out there on entrepreneurship. And I'm old enough to have been one of those early entrepreneurs called self-employed. Because back when I started my first business, that word had not been used, it wasn't being used. And the definition in Wikipedia, the font of all knowledge today, is somebody who runs a business or businesses and financially takes responsibility for them. So for me, you know, what is entrepreneurship? Now, I think if we then add, what makes an entrepreneur successful? Because if we just go, look, an entrepreneur is somebody who runs a business. Now, the successful entrepreneurs, and the picture, by the way, was Richard Branson, which I thought was quite interesting. I thought maybe one or two of the 3.4 million SMEs that rock up every day and deliver 99.9%. It's an amazing statistic. I checked the statistic. 99.9% of all private revenue created in the UK is created by entrepreneurial, owner-operated businesses in the SME sector. It is phenomenal. 15,000 billion revenue by these people. And we've got a successful entrepreneur called Richard Branson who basically was self-employed. Started in a telephone box, if you've read his story, flogging tubular bells. So what's entrepreneurship? It's running a business. Now, what's successful entrepreneurship for me is passion. Like, my favorite word was always enthusiasm, last 4 letters of enthusiasm, I-A-S-M, I am sold myself. Because trust me, if you're not sold on your product, you're never going to get anybody else to buy your product. And if you aren't, I was just completely blown away by the fact that when I started my first business, I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't as excited it was Monday morning as I was. Like, you know, what do you mean, thank God it's Friday? How does that work? You're only excited about 2 days a week? Like, I want to get up every day and be excited. So for me, it was about the passion, it was about the belief, it was about doing something you love for people who love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. So whilst I was rather glib with the retire, I never started work. I was a professional enthusiast from about 14 and never looked back. So entrepreneurship to me is about engaging that passion, engaging what you love, doing what you love for people who love what you do, is the successful entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is go start a business. How do you get successful in that business? Well, that's another story. But entrepreneurship, the definition is people who run businesses. And more power to them.
Thank you very much. Emma, one remark?
No, I just wanted to add to that, because I know the word is entrepreneurship that we're kind of discussing here, but increasingly there's kind of a really popular area called intrapreneurship, which is entrepreneurial people within big businesses, which is really interesting to see how this is taking off. So there's a great book written by a guy called Nic Rixon called The Lean Startup, which is essentially about how companies are pivoting very quickly at the moment because technology is enabling them to do that. And businesses such as Intuit, which actually you may know, hopefully with an accounting-friendly audience here, so big US accounting software company, they follow lean startup principles in their business and very much kind of encourage their employees to be entrepreneurial. Coca-Cola are now doing sessions in-house to try and encourage their employees to be more entrepreneurial. So it's really good for someone who's kind of on the UK enterprise scene to see that we have got record numbers of people becoming their own boss and starting their own business, but also that big companies are saying, actually, the only way in which we'll survive is if we have entrepreneurial spirit within our employees as well.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm going to go about one step backward. Actually, that's actually our subject number 2, because it always starts somewhere. But, you know, in our world, the professional world, people many times start by frustration. People are frustrated, they hate the boss, that they're ever redundant, find themselves, they have to start a business. It never came out the word passion, be passionate. A lot of people are afraid to do that. For some of them in the room. I mean, recently I've been in the Successful Entrepreneur house. I sneak in the toilet, and I shot the following film. So let me show you. Oh, what is that? Where is that? Oh, I wanted to ask a question first to the audience, I guess. So I will skip that one because we have no time. We'll ask it later on. So I want to ask, and I want to show you the movie.
Look, I can be a surf. Now, my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my outfits. I like my mom. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my rooms. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah. I can do anything good. Better than anyone. Better than anyone.
That's actually where it should start.
Brilliant.
Back to you, panelists, and start with Nic. Where does it start? You start touching it, but where did it start with you? Where did it start, Steve?
It's an interesting question. I got asked, why did you start your first business? And it wasn't the most motivational. I was already passionate about the product. Why did I go and do it for myself? Because I actually really enjoyed being a number 2. I quite liked the boss I worked for. I was 19 when I discovered job stood for just over broke, and decided that I wanted to do something for myself. And it was because I was sick and tired of taking from people. Now, that wasn't the most inspirational start, so I didn't have a burning passion. And certainly in the coaching world, what I tend to find is people start either, as you said, because I don't want to do that anymore. I want a lifestyle change. I want to do what I do now for myself. Or they've got a burning product ambition. They're product skilled. They know how to build a kitchen or sell a car or design a house or build a bridge, or they know how to do something in a product space, and they go off for this entrepreneurial seizure and go and build a business called a job for themselves. And I started basically because I couldn't deliver the quality I wanted to deliver under the regime I was working. I wanted to do it better. I wanted to do it cleaner. I wanted to have more client relationships instead of just taking money off people. So I just went and did it for myself. And the funny thing was, I'd always used to read the back of the paper. I'm one of these kids that was called stupid at school. It's dyslexic today, but back then it was stupid or lazy. I always remember the day my English teacher came to my factory for a summer job. That was one of my favorite moments. And the look he looked at me when he realized I owned the whole place, and he went, "Oh, you did okay." For a B+ could do better student, was that, you know, if I could get out and be passionate about what I did and do it different and do it better, that somewhere along the line I would add value, I'd have fun, and people would give me money. Like, I just trusted that. I never got in it for the money. I don't think I've ever checked how much we've ever earned. I used to look at the balance sheet. As long as there weren't brackets around the number at the end, I was usually happy. I didn't learn to read a balance sheet until I'd been in business 7 years. My rule was if there was more money in the bank at the end of the month than the beginning, we were doing okay. That was kind of how I worked it. When we got to $1 million in the bank, I went, we're probably doing quite well. So, you know, how did I start? By accident, like so many people do. I didn't have a dream. I didn't have a plan. In fact, my first business plan was a piece of checkered paper with some figures scribbled on it that some guy at the bank believed and lent me 10 grand. My dad punted in 5 as well, and off we went. So rule was, is there more in the bank at the end of the month than there was at the beginning? You're probably doing okay. But, you know, I just went out and was passionate about everything I did. I was passionate about everybody I met. I mean, I ran a cardboard box business, guys. Like, you know, what's not to be passionate about? So, you know, and genuinely, people used to buy. Sometimes I've had people say, look, we have no idea what you sell, but we want some. Like, we want you working for us. Like, we don't care about your cardboard boxes. Can you just come and work for us? Like, if you can't transfer that energy across, then, you know, stay employed. Like, that would be the advice. So by accident is the answer.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Again, I'm reminding you, I always ask questions.
I think mine started a bit earlier. A little like Nick, I didn't, when I did start my first, inverted commas, proper business, have an idea what it was going to be. I just knew I wanted to do my own thing. But I think mine started as a kid when I was 6 or 7. I think it's partly the fact that my brothers and I were allowed to sort of go out and get up to all sorts of mischief, and we started inevitably taking risks on things. And most of the time it came out well. But we always dreamt big, and I had a few ideas, and I probably didn't know what a proper job was and all, you know, being an entrepreneur at the age of 6 or 7, but I kind of knew I wanted to do my own thing. And I suppose at about primary school I did a couple of things. We used to go around and wash cars, knock on doors, make quite good money there. Used to go and buy tuck, take it into school, undercut the tuck shop. Anything that was kind of doing a deal, I really enjoyed that. And then I sort of took I think about a 20-year sabbatical by mistake. I kind of forgot all of that stuff, all the stuff I really loved, and went through the rest of secondary school education, which kind of doesn't do a great deal to encourage you to go off and start your own business. It's getting better, but it's still got a long way to go, and it's certainly terrible when I grew up. So I didn't see that as an option. And so I thought, what do I do? And I went into accounting, as I said earlier, and I learnt a lot there, but it didn't feel like the passion. I joined a VC-backed smaller business. I kind of enjoyed that a bit more, but I realised I wanted to be the boss and control my own future. But I still didn't know, like Nick, what it was going to be. But anyway, I started off and I spent 2 or 3 years working with startups, very much in Emma's space. And I worked on a couple of turnarounds that was fun. But I came across something going back to opportunity. Opportunity came my way. I started running a roundtable event. It went well. We did a few more, and 10 years later, we've literally just had our 10th birthday for the Supper Club, which has led on to a whole range of other things. So I'm not sure everybody has a burning idea and they immediately start. I think a lot of people leave because they just want to start their own thing and very much start as a consultant and then branch out and build something that's maybe more scalable. So, potted history.
I want you to understand it was not prepared. It's simple as it sounds to you. It's simple as it sounds to you. Emma,
Yeah, it's interesting that Duncan mentioned that he kind of started out young, and I know we'll maybe talk later about busting myths of entrepreneurship, but one of the most common questions is, are you born or made an entrepreneur? And I think you absolutely can pick up the skills to start a business and become an entrepreneur, but interestingly, I think one of the reasons why I first started a business is my mum was self-employed when we were growing up. So my mum ran restaurants, so all I knew from the age of kind of 9 or 10 was talking finances around the dinner table. Every time I wanted to see mum, we were kind of working in her restaurant. So the thing that I love, which is happening a lot in Britain now, is as kids are growing up with self-employed parents, to the kids, as they get to a certain age, self-employment feels like the most natural thing. So I had left university, worked for Arthur Andersen here in London, moved to Leeds and Manchester, and I'd been with Andersons for 5 years, and this was in 2000, so it was the height of the dot-com boom. And so the reason why I started my first business, which was a dot-com company, was because in the year 2000, the media was full of stories of people changing business models because the internet and the World Wide Web enabled them to do it. And I was really captivated by this and thought, well, this is incredible because this thing has just unleashed massive amounts of opportunity. So I went to my boss at Andersons and I said, look, what I was doing was helping companies move into the UK. So I said, I want to start a business putting this inward investment process online. So I worked on the business whilst I was still in my job. We call it working 5 to 9. We've written a book about it in terms of how you keep your day job, but you build the business at nights and weekends. So I left Andersons when I was 27, started my first business, which was called techlicate.com, very much because I was enlivened by all the opportunities of that kind of dot-com time. Interestingly, when I still look back on this, and Nic mentioned his business plan was on half a piece of paper, at the time, I started my first business with a business partner, and we were encouraged to go out and seek funding because that's what you did in the dot-com era. And we wrote a business plan where we got help from a corporate finance boutique, which is, I still keep it because it's like a doorstop. And we went to a venture capital firm, which I will not name, as pretty much kind of two kids saying, right, we want to start this business, we want 3 million, you know, we have no idea how it's going to make any money, and we got offered the money. And we didn't take it, fortunately, because we got customers coming in from as soon as we kind of announced what we were doing. So fortunately, we did not surrender any equity. We didn't take any funding. But the interesting thing was that the dot-com boom was great for encouraging people to start businesses. What wasn't so good about it is all business basics went out of the window. People forgot that you actually have to make money to run a business. So anyway, we started the business. 15 months later, we sold it to a business called Tenon, which you might know of. And in fact, I don't know if there's this like a recurring theme. So I was with Andersons, they went down. Then we sold to Tenon. Tenon has just gone down. It had nothing to do with me. I've not been in these organisations when this happened. But I had an 18-month lock-in clause with Tenon when we sold, and I kind of used that time because that was an interesting experience. Having run my own business, we were 5 people when we sold. It was a great kind of 18-month period in terms of starting, growing, and selling a business very quickly. You learn a lot. But I had 18 months working for somebody else, and I was like, right, I have to get out of this. So I guess at the time, I could see there were lots of people starting businesses from home, actually, in the UK, and I thought it's crazy that there's no information for people who are starting home-based businesses. So when Enterprise Nation first launched 8 years ago, we were the home business website. Our first book was called Spare Room Startup, How to Start a Business from Home. So that's kind of how we got started. But maybe just as a final comment, is a reflection on what I'm seeing in terms of why people are starting businesses now, because at Enterprise Nation, we deliver something called Startup Saturday. We help thousands of businesses get started every year. And the big thing that we're seeing in this country, and I think elsewhere, is actually people not necessarily kind of thinking, oh my goodness, I've come up with this massive new idea that's going to plug a gap in the market. But we're seeing huge numbers of people just literally take their hobby, their passion, their skill, and turn that into a way of making a living. So websites such as Etsy.com, which are massive enablers in terms of helping people do this, this is where we're seeing a really big entrepreneurial spirit now. So I think people start businesses for different reasons, spotting a gap in the market, which is great. But as I say, kind of lots of people are just saying, can I turn what I love doing into a way of making a living? And hopefully that's great, because it never really feels like you're working.
Thank you very much. I mean, actually, you're sitting in front of the panelists. One of the reasons we asked this question, because I think you realize the word that Nic using, passion, you could see it, all of them. You could see the eye sparkling, you could see the smiles, you could see speaking about something they love. Isn't it interesting? But I mean, what being said here, I think something indirectly you said, Emma, I think all of you mentioned it, that actually each of these people here are experts. They don't even know how expert they are. They think they're just another guy. But each of you has knowledge and expert that you package in the right way, and you could be an entrepreneur. Actually, indirectly what you guys are saying. So we're going to go actually to the third part of our discussion, which I want to dive in, which is more interesting. And that's actually your participation as well. These are values. We do believe, of course, you need passion, other things, but there are values who are necessary to have a very successful entrepreneur. And we want to compare some values. We want to get first your opinion, and we get, in very short, each of the panelists refreshing ideas about it. And I think Nic suggested before, maybe we should take 2 of these examples and examine you after that. See what you're going to choose after you hear the people's ideas. So everybody has a voting keypad? You guys up ready? Great.
Okay, you're not allowed to vote us off the stage either.
Sure.
Off.
The red button's not connected to our chairs flipping over backwards like Graham
Or
Norton,
down.
just so you know.
So actually, before we ask you the question, I have actually a little story to tell you about the comparison, comparison value, comparison thing. I mean, I was there. I mean, I heard that it's not maybe the authentic story, or at least the story I have in front of me, but it's the comparison that's done between the auto industry and the computer industry, and I will read it for you. A recent computer exposition, Bill Gates reportedly compared the computer industry with the auto industry and stated, she woke up again. Bill Gates reportedly compared the computer industry with the auto industry and stated, if General Motors had kept up with the technology like the computer industry has, we all are driving $25 cars that got 1,000 miles for a gallon. In response to Bill's comments, General Motors responded and issued a press release and stating, if General Motors has developed technology like Microsoft, we all be driving cars with the following characteristic. For no reason whatsoever, your car would crash twice a day. Every time they repainted the lines in the road, you would have to buy a new car. Occasionally, your car would die on the freeway with no reason. You would have to pull over to the side of the road, close all the windows, shut off the car, restart it, reopen the window before you could continue. For some reason, we simply accept this. Occasionally, executing maneuvers such as left turns would cause your car to shut down and refuse to start, in which case you would have to reinstall the engine. Macintosh will make a car that was powered by the sun, was reliable, 5 times as fast and twice as easy to drive, but will run only on 5% of the roads. The oil, water, temperature, and alternator warning lights will all be replaced by a single general protection fault warning light. The airbag system will ask, are you sure, before deploying? Occasionally, for no reason whatsoever, your car would lock you out and refuse to let you in until you simultaneously lifted the door handle, turn on the key, and grab the hold of the radio antenna. And every time General Motors introduced a new car, car buyers would have to learn to drive all over again, because none of the controls will operate in the same manner as the old car. And the last one, you have to press the start button to turn the engine off. So very interesting comparison. So we're going to go to our own value comparisons when we talk about entrepreneurship. And this is the first one? I don't think so. No, that's the question. We should go back to the presentation, please. Can somebody bring it back? Okay, great. Here you go. So we compare. The first one we want to compare is bravery against analysis. I mean, I hope you understand what I mean by that. And in order to be a good, successful entrepreneur, you have to be brave, or you have to do analytical skill, check it out, all the options before you make a choice. Now we can go to the question, please. Second question. Let's see. Yeah, that's great. What's more important, guys? Please vote. Entrepreneurship value, bravery, or analysis? A, bravery, B, analysis, C, both equally. Please vote now. I mean, you can choose. The last choice you're making will count. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. That's the result. Yes. Wow. We see that both A and C. Very low percentage for analysis. Most people think you have to be brave, or you have to be brave and good analytical skill. Anybody wants to start?
Can I go with contentious straight away and say I actually don't think it's either, because most entrepreneurs haven't got a clue what they're getting themselves into when they start a business. And if you actually told them what you're going to go through and how much effort you're going to have to put in, they'd stay in their job. If you look at the analysis that Gallup did around entrepreneurs, what they found was most entrepreneurs said that their number one skill set that helped them be successful entrepreneurs was their gut instinct and intuition and feeling. And Jobs said the same thing in his interview this morning. So I don't think they do a lot of analysis either. I suppose there's bravery by we'll have a go, because that's what I find entrepreneurs, they'll have a go. Like it's almost anything you need them to do, any problem, go find a problem for an entrepreneur who's genuinely building a business and we'll have a go, we'll work it out. Like it's the actual picture that follows this, which is either through, over or under, like we'll have a go, we'll work it out somehow. So I'm not sure we think that far into the future. It's like, let's just get on and have a go.
I think it's actually interesting something to tell survey because it's more than 100% of voters, 101%.
Pretty good math, then.
Analyze that.
I rest my case.
Very interesting observation. Now everybody thinks it's fake. It's not real.
Yeah, but lawyers don't do numbers, so it's the accountants who work that out.
Very good. Emma, you want to answer? I think it's your choice here.
I'd just say analysis brings bravery because kind of doing the market research makes you more confident. But just because the word bravery sort of amuses me, people say to me a lot, oh my goodness, it's so risky to start a business. And in fact, my response to that at the moment is I actually think it's more of a risk to stay in a job than to start a business, because one of the things that starting a business does is it puts you in control. So the more you put into a business, the more you get out of it, and yet that's not necessarily the same with a job. So I think the bravest people at the moment, in a way, are those that are staying in employment, because I think it's actually much better and it gives you more control of your working and living life to kind of start a business. But I think kind of market research, the best businesses I see do go out and do some research on their market. They do constantly talk to the customers and say, what do you like? That gives them the confidence to then go and continue to be brave to kind of bring new products out into the market. So I think analysis drives one.
Put trust and honesty against likability, because you remember, I remember when I gave once presentation, I told you the clients after 4 things. After confidence, believe in you, to trust, you have to like you, and ask you what is the most important thing. And most of you said trust, and I told you the story of a lady goes out at night with a guy, and she comes home, everybody asks her, how was your date? She said, it was great. I trust the guy, but I didn't like him. So of course it's likability. So now we come to entrepreneurship, not with your clients. What is it? Is it to be trustworthy, like we're all thinking, of course, and honesty, or you have to be likable? That's good enough to be a good, successful entrepreneur. Okay? Let's vote for that first. So, what is the most important entrepreneurship value? Trust, honesty, and likability. A, trust, honesty. B, likability. C, both. Please vote now. 10 seconds. I remind you the last push on the button, that counts. So you can change it 10, 20 times within the 10 seconds.
Don't tell them that.
Okay, here you go. Wow. Wow, that looks a bit interesting. I mean, we see A, trust, honesty is 40%. And we have C, both, and 25 likability. Still, people think to be likable is not more important than trustworthy, honesty. Duncan, shall we start with you now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see trust sort of is high on the agenda. I kind of started with both, but then I remembered, I think trust comes first for me. That's definitely the most important. Likability, I've met some people I've enjoyed the company of, and I'll be honest, sort of suckered in. I mean, they were in tremendously enjoyable company, and they turn out to be right con artists. And one I went into business with a number of years ago on something that didn't last very long. I'm relieved to say, got out quickly. They were very likable, but the archetypal con man. So I think trust is the first one. But I would also say I'm very fortunate. It's one of the advantages of working for yourself. I don't work with anyone I don't like. Exactly. Just don't do it.
Or trust.
Well, trust is first, but I don't, but for me, I also have the ability to say no, I just won't work with people I don't like.
In other words, if you don't like
And that's
person,
liberating.
it's a must
Yeah.
as well, but it's not enough.
Can I ask a question on the back of that?
Please.
That you could say with that sort of a view that one of the disadvantages of some entrepreneurs is that they're great with tabletop type companies, but as the business gets bigger, you guys you've looked like you've been in some fairly big businesses and you're the happy chappies. But where do you think the entrepreneur is happiest when the business gets bigger?
It depends on the character. I mean, there are some, I mean, we all know kind of the Richard Branson's found a way to sort of scale. Others feel, I've got a club full of them and they fall into variety camps. And I think it's probably reasonably equally balanced. There are those that sort of get up to 5, 10, 15 million turnover, depends, it's usually about staff numbers, whatever the metrics, and they go, I've had enough, I just want to go and do it all again. They just love the starting stuff, you know, shiny new idea, want to go off and do it. And then there are others that, for them, it's about legacy and changing the world, and you're not going to do that with a 5, 10 million turnover business. You know, you've got to make it bigger, and they want to build the sort of autonomy or something that size. So I don't think there's a, I think it varies a lot.
And if you can do that in one business, even better. And this is, I guess, something I do in my business, but there's a great woman in the UK called Judy Piatkas who had a great publishing company, and she was quite ahead of her time being female, running a big publishing company. She's sold now, successfully exited. But one of the things that she said is that she did want to be the kind of, right, I want to come up with new ideas, keep the company fresh, etc. But can you grow a big business when you're trying to do that? And similar to the Richard Branson model, she just kept on coming up with new ideas, but kept them contained within her company. So her company grew, but she managed to maintain that kind of stealth for, I want to come up with new ideas and be part of something that is like a new mini startup within my own business. And I guess that's a lot of entrepreneurs that I see. They grow their turnover, grow their profitability, go into new markets, but they're constantly starting new things in the business.
I also think that I mean, having worked with a lot of CEOs that tend to call us in when things are perhaps not going as well as they could, although we're, you know, good to great, not broken to fixed. Nonetheless, it's a lot easier to buy help when things are going wrong. And what typically happens if they've started, or what we're finding, if they've started with a product idea, so they are good at product, what they want to go back to is what they were good at, if it's the business side that's falling over. Now, if they started with product and they end up being good at running businesses, then what tends to happen is they'll go find another product to run a business around. So what they normally do is they play their skills. They play to where they're happiest. So you go and talk to a vet that set up a business, that studied for 7 to 9 years to be a vet, and he wants to, or she wants to run a business like they want a hole in the head. What they want to do is work with animals. So if they've got high vocational skills, architects tend to not be that excited about running the practice. You might find 1 in 20 architects in an architect's practice that actually wants to run the business. So what they do is they go back to what they know. They go back to what they're passionate about. Now, if they get it successful and they make plenty of money, then they come up and start looking around and go, what else could I do? And so there's kind of 3 phases. One is startup energy. It's exciting, it's new, it's interesting. There's a growth and payback phase where it all goes well, hopefully. And then you get beyond that, you get the systems and processes in place and it all works well. And then the entrepreneur, or even the product entrepreneur, gets bored and then says, what next? And then they create the whole cycle again and off they go. So what we generally find is they go back to what they feel good at and feel comfortable at, which is great if that's what the business needs at that time. It generally isn't. So they stick with what they know. What's
also interesting is whether you can do it twice, because we had a guy, Innocent, you'll know the Innocent brand in the UK, so they've just sold 3 lovely, beautiful British business startup story, but 3 guys who started the company. So they've just exited, got millions in the bank. And one of them, John Wright, came to speak for something for us a week ago. And the 3 of them, so they've sold, they've left the business, and you would have thought they'd kind of be off spending their money, but the 3 of them are sitting back in an office. And it's funny how he tells the story, because he said at the beginning of Innocent, they were kind of rolling around these chairs saying, right, we want to make these smoothies. And he said, we're literally rolling around in these chairs again, the 3 of us kind of saying, right, what do we do now? And bless his heart, written all over his face was this kind of, oh my goodness, can we do it again? And that's, I think, is really interesting. Can you take, whether 1 entrepreneur or 3 entrepreneurs who've made a massive success of one business, can they do it again? And the pressure on them to succeed.
And the sad part about that is history tells us that not
Maybe
many
not.
of them do, because they started with a product idea, right place, right time, right skill set in the product. It's been successful because it was unbelievably successful product. And then, and as one of the mistakes I made early on, I found right place, right time, right product, and then thought, that makes me a skilled, brilliant entrepreneur, let's go do that somewhere else. And it was a disaster. Now, and we see it all the time. They believe that success in doing this means that I will be successful over here doing that, and it doesn't always work. Now, it does. You know, Branson is one good example where it has worked. There are people who do. If they get the business bug as opposed to the product bug, then yes, it can work. But I've got to tell you, the number of times I've seen crash and burn after success. I mean, and you can burn through most of the money because your vision's 10 times the size now. You know, oh, we went from nothing to 20 million. Let's go to 100 million this time. Let's take our 20 million and burn it all. I've seen it so many times. It's just painful.
They burn the lot.
I would add one thing to that, which is just off the back of it, when you see people that sell their business, I mean, an awful lot of them may come across as very confident characters, but inside there's masses of burning self-doubt until the moment they actually sell their business for a decent slug of cash. And I don't know if you agree, you see a lot of them almost the day after, they're the guru that can tell anyone how to run a business brilliantly, and they would probably not have behaved the same way the day before the deal was done. And then when they go off and try something new, they've got that unfounded confidence that they can take on a new market where they don't have any expertise, and that's where many flounder.
Yeah.
And maybe just to finalize those too, because we have short of time, of course, we want to run to also the myth, of course. So we have another comparison, marketing and connection. I mean, it's again a hard one, but we know we need both. What is most important as a value, not only as a need for the business, for a successful entrepreneur? So will you vote for that one? Yes, let's do that. Connection, brand exposure, or both equally? Oops. I think I should next time take out number C. It's just a big trap for
It's got to
myself.
be one or the other.
It's a cop-out.
Yeah, it always an obstacle. I don't know A or
my
B.
goodness.
But look, here it's actually very clear
Interesting.
that connection.
Interesting.
I mean, probably networking. 49% people think connection is the right value more than just brand exposure. I mean, I think if you just reflect in very short, but I think it's very important, I guess, as a startup, or as a company who already has a brand like McDonald's, do they care about the connection or do they care about the brand exposure? I mean, I think there is a big difference, I guess.
Interesting thing, I don't know whether anybody's managed to get hold of a book that's now slightly out of date, but it's called Marketing the Battle for the Mind. It's by Al Rees and Jack Trout.
Yeah.
It's worth a read. It's a bit old, but it'll tell you the history of all of the development of taking businesses or taking products to market since after the war. So product era turned into a marketing era with the Marlboro Man cigarette, turned into a positioning era with sticking a shoe on Michael Jordan, then turned into a distribution era, what we called the social networking. So social networking started to become the big way to do business, and there's people out there building huge businesses at zero cost. I mean, literally zero cost, millions of revenue from literally putting opinions out onto the internet and getting business back off of that. And that will now develop into its next phase. So it's interesting that you've picked connection versus brand exposure, because the brand exposure bit would have been back to the positioning era, which basically finished as far as the big corporates are concerned about 8 years ago, 9 years ago. We've been in the connection era, the distribution era, if you like, for the last 8 years. It's coming to an end, and we're now moving into a new product era, which is going to be IP based, which is what you should all be excited about. So it's interesting that we're still caught into that connections what it's all about, but it's definitely changing as we come out of this recession. So that's an interesting vote.
Those numbers are pretty much what I thought they might be, and I guess it's in part because I think there's two sides to this. If you're running either a high ticket product or you're delivering a service like most of you are doing, I think connections absolutely are more important than brand. I think also in the cycle of most businesses at the beginning, connections are more valuable than brand because, you know, for spend, etc., you're not going to get bang for buck. It's who do you know and how can you access the first few customers to build credibility. So I'm not surprised with that, and I kind of agree. I go with the first one.
Okay, and I'm going to go for the last one, and that's the first impression reputation. I mean, first impression, which is typical, like, thing people know. You get here a lot of first impression people. And the other part is reputation. A, first impression. B, reputation. C, both equally. Please vote now. Now, again, no, C. The last one. We're going to come to the myth afterwards. Here you go. Here, I think a little bit more for reputation. Look, see, both equally people don't think. You don't need first impression and reputation at the same time, so it makes sense. But, Emma, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I guess I would be concerned if reputation wasn't the high score with this audience. I was just saying to Duncan, though, they seem two quite strange things to compare in terms of first impression versus a reputation. I don't know, it's like if your first impression isn't good, that means the person's got a bad reputation. I'm not kind of quite sure what to draw from it, but in fact, I'm really bad at first impressions, so I would hopefully try and go based on reputation in terms of how you come across as an expert when you first meet people and have that credibility. So, yeah, good to see that result.
But just to make it clear, I mean, reputation, when you mean reputation, you don't mean that you saw it all over the newspaper. I mean, even if a friend referred to you, said that's a good person to deal with.
Well, that's the thing that every small business wants, is kind of reputation or word of mouth referral, which of course is free to have for every small business. So this is the thing that every small business wants to achieve. Social media has massively enabled that in terms of do people like you on Facebook, recommend you on Twitter. So this is something that every small business goes for. But and again, I suppose with social media, and we haven't really spoken that much actually about how technology is changing things for kind of startups and small businesses at the moment. But lots of time now you do get questions, and I don't know if it's so much in your industry, around whether small business owners should show their personality now in business. So should they have separate Facebook and Twitter accounts? Sorry, sir, did you want to make a comment on that? Well, no, so it's kind of whether, but that kind of mystifies me, because a big thing, and I know this is the case in your trade, is small business owners at the beginning of their business depend on selling themselves. So it is the person, it's the customers buying the story of the person at the outset. And interestingly, if you look at businesses like Martha Stewart in the US, she has built $1 billion business still based on her as an individual. So in terms of social media, it's how you get that story, your expertise, your personality across, so that hopefully people do say, I really like what it is that I see. I buy into the values of this person and this brand, and I want to buy from it. And just the other thing I was going to say on the slide that kind of went before, not to band around too much terminology, but a word we keep on hearing at the moment from big corporates who want to talk to small businesses is engagement. Rather than return on investment, they're talking about return on engagement. Can they access a community and start a conversation with businesses to whom they want to sell? So you're not just saying, I don't know, I'm HP, we want to sell you laptops. HP are now getting into spaces where small businesses are and saying, we want to understand what your issues are. How can we help you make more sales, reduce your costs? And by the way, we'll try and do that with a printer. So they still want to sell, but they want to engage with the communities. So in which respect, reputation, impression, all of it's kind of critically important.
Listen to the word, you got a big tip here, so in each country you are.
Well, I just want to add, like, if I can ask you a question. How many of you are currently engaged in a social media campaign as a company? Okay, so how many of you would use a TripAdvisor before you'd book a hotel? So you check it out and would make a decision based on whether they like or not? Okay, so that's quite a high level. I don't know whether have you heard of a gentleman called Thomas Power?
Yes.
You know Thomas Power? Well. So Thomas and Penny Power have got a really interesting, they were started the first ever social network called Academy. It was 10, 15 years ago. It was cutting edge at the time, etc. Penny's got some very interesting information that she does around how to engage the market using social media. And she works with the government on helping businesses do that. She's worth checking out. I can't think of the company name at the moment.
They're coming tomorrow to our event.
Oh, there you go. So anyway, Penny will be here tomorrow and you can talk to them. But it's worth checking out what she's doing online. And the word like has changed. You know, just like somebody down the pub is now become, you know, have you liked me? In other words, and Penny's version, I think, if I get it right, is know me, like me, follow me. Yeah. And then do business with me. So the social engagement process is changing. Rather than that push strategy of sending messages out to the marketplace to gather clients, we're now sending stuff out into the client base to allow them to get to know us, then to follow us, then to like us, then to do business with us. And it will completely change. They ran a course for us, completely change the way you view social media and social networking. It's still a bit poo-pooed by some of the professional service businesses, including our own, I would have said, until Penny came and spent a day with us. It was revolutionary what she was talking about in terms of engaging in a social media space. So if she's coming, she's definitely worth listening to. Leadors, that's it. Thank you. Leadors.
Because it's coming to every our members. We'll use it. We'll do the survey, etc. So
I can't big it up enough.
Can I dive into the myth? Do you have time for us?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm going to give you some myth. I know part of panelists actually influence the myth because it's part of the thought that are not actually a myth. So we give with the myth we think are in the industry of the entrepreneurship. And look at the first one. First one, entrepreneurs are born, not made. I think I don't have to convince you, but this one I think is for you, Duncan. I think you were the one first answer.
Try.
You were the one for the first and second one, I guess, right? Or I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. So you go for that one.
Can I just ask? I'm just really curious before I sort of say my piece. But who thinks it's born?
Who think entrepreneurs are born? Please raise your hand.
Born, made. Right. Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Need I say more?
You're all wrong.
I'm with you. I'm with the second lot. In short, I mean, I think there's growing evidence that that genetics actually have more of an impact on lots of things than perhaps it's been given credit for in the last sort of 20, 30 years. But I think when it comes to entrepreneurs, I've had the good fortune to be, over the last 10 years, around, got probably about 2,000 through all the events we do, something like that. I was trying to work out how many it was before I came. And they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and backgrounds, and there is no rhyme and reason. We've got, the Oxbridge first, have gone off, done investment banking or whatever, and then set up a business. And we've got a guy running a multi-million-pound business who can't read or write. And I still haven't got to the bottom of how he manages that, but extraordinary. We've got people that can't see, that can't, absolutely, and I just wonder how they did it. But the point is, they're not, their backgrounds, however varied they might be, I suspect have brought out a number of things. So, and of course, people start business at different stages. So I'll share one story which was illuminating to me. When I brought together, I set up a group of ambassadors for the startup loan company. So when we launched it, we didn't have a whole track record of young people who'd taken out a loan with the scheme because it was new. So what we did is we identified a number of young people who had set out a business with very little money when they'd started, between the ages of 16 and 24, and they were now between 24 and 30. And when I got them around the table, I asked them the question, how did you get started so young? How many of you here have got parents or close friends, very, very close family friends that run a business? And I'm curious, how many hands do you think went up? Anyone want to kind of? All of them. Well, 11 out of the 12. And I think for me, the big thing is, and I think we are seeing a change with more of it on television and all sorts of programs like startup loans and stuff going on in schools, it's getting better. But without role models, I think an awful lot of people don't think about it until later on in life. We are seeing all the stats and the research is indicating young people are seeing it much more as an option now, which is greatly encouraging, because I think we're a hugely inventive nation. I'd like to see more of that invention come through to something that's, yes?
Actually, you can attribute it to genetics as well, because it's their parents.
I'm not for a minute saying it's neither, but I'd say it's probably less about, there may be a correlation clearly, but I suspect it's more about the role model and the influence and the empowering. The follow-up question was, why do you think that made a difference? And even when I've spoken to members about it who didn't have parents, it was a close family friend that used to come around, and they'd tell us stories about what he was doing in his business and see the passion, and it had a dramatic influence. And for those that don't have that at all in their life growing up young, it's not an option, because teachers don't tell you to go and do that. That's not in their makeup. They are not entrepreneurs.
Not entrepreneurial. The interesting thing is when you have Richard Branson set up as the goal, very often that, if you go back to the baby boomer or the X gen, we would have looked at that role model and gone, oh, that's a bit big. But the Y generation are Henry Ford's generation. They don't know what can't be done. Like, they've got a whole world business in their phone. They can do business from anywhere in the world at any time. They've got hundreds of connections with thousands of people at the touch of a button. They don't know what can't be done. So I think we're looking at an entrepreneurial explosion with the Y generation that's coming today for just that reason. They're actually not as driven by their parents, because they are the generation that's looking to do something different. I mean, each generation wants to do something different to its parents. And I just think it's going to be tremendous what they'll do as we come out of this recession. These 27, 26, 25, 24-year-olds literally just don't know what can't be done. They believe anything's possible. Yeah. The old boomer basically did what Dad did. Dad went and worked in a company all his life. We might have 3 jobs for life. X generation are going to have 12. The Y generation will have 35 jobs by the time they're 35. No brand loyalty, no country loyalty, go anywhere, live anywhere. Like, they're amazing.